Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Rabbi Paul Bloom, and I'm on the board of directors of the Israel Inspiration Initiative. And I'd like to welcome all of you to this session. Uh, the objective of the Israeli Inspiration Initiative is really to move everyone towards thinking about Aliyah, to start the overall planning process. As we all know, making Aliyah is a very big decision for you and your family, and each one of you are in a different place. Some of you are ready to open up a tick with Nefesh B'Nefesh. Others are just starting to think about the process of what does it really mean to me and my family to consider Aliyah as part of our future. And what this session is focused in on is to really understand how you can take those next steps, whatever those next steps are. We are very fortunate to have a wonderful set of speakers. Many of them are world-renowned speakers, such as Rabbi Pruzansky, Rabbi Schwartz, Hillel Fuld, and many others who are known throughout the Jewish community and their commitment to Eretz Yisrael and Medinat Yisrael. Let me very quickly quickly go through the agenda. First speaker will be Hillel Fuld, who will be talking about finding a job in Eretz Yisrael and inspiring people on all the opportunities that exist in Eretz Yisrael. That will be followed on by Rabbi Pruzansky, and then followed by Rabbi Schwartz. And I will continue with the agenda and introduce each of the speakers individually. I think it's really very important to listen to each one of these speakers. It's amazing the impact that Aliyah has made on all these speakers. And it's a real difference. I could talk from my own perspective. I made Aliyah 4 years ago, and it literally has changed my life as the way of how I view the world. And it's very different of just visiting Eretz Yisrael for a few weeks or a few months. Actually living here and immersing yourself in Eretz Yisrael, in Torah Yisrael, in Medinat Yisrael will make a very big difference in you, in your family, and in your future generations. So let me pass the baton over to Hillel Fuld, who is a world-renowned speaker, talking about what available professionals can look for in Eretz Yisrael as they're looking for a job. Hillel, it's all yours.
Thank you so much. I'm going to start with something that I've been thinking a lot about during this war, and that is we're all familiar with the story of the man that gets on the roof during a storm and says, "Hashem will save me." And, Hashem sends the boat. He doesn't get on the boat. Hashem sends the helicopter. And then he goes up to Hashem. He says, "I drowned." He says, "I believed in you. Why didn't you save me?" And Hashem says, "I didn't save you." The way I see this, I would say it's the same thing for Aliyah. Yirtzeh Hashem, Mashiach should come. But if Mashiach doesn't come, we come up to Hashem and say, "Why didn't you bring kibbutz galios?" We daven Ani Ma'amin, and Hashem's going to say to us, "I didn't bring kibbutz galios. I brought Elal. I brought Nefesh B'Nefesh. I even sent you. I made Israel a paradise. I made it so much easier to make Aliyah than what once was, and we'll talk about that. And I even said anti-Semitism. You to get on the boat. That's the way I see things. And so I want to focus on making Aliyah from a professional perspective. But I'll give a disclaimer first and say that I moved here when I was 15, in the middle of high school. I didn't pick up and give up an entire life that I built. My parents brought me here. So feel free to take what I'm saying with a grain of salt, but I can only speak from my experience. And that is that really all of the excuses, and I don't say excuses in a judgmental way, it's justified excuses or explanations that one once had as it pertains to working and finding a livelihood in Israel, I think have basically disappeared. And the reason I say that is because, as you see here in the first bullet, the unique advantage of the Israeli job market that doesn't exist anywhere else. And that is what I like to call a lack of corporate hierarchy. What do I mean by that? I mean that if you're in Silicon Valley and you want to have lunch with Mark Zuckerberg, good luck, right? No matter how many strings you pull, no matter how many emails you send, you are not going to have lunch with Mark Zuckerberg. Whereas in Israel, basically anyone that you want to connect with in the professional tech ecosystem, with almost no exceptions, if you use the resources and you work the system and you're resourceful, you really can network with anyone. And that means that you can create opportunities. And that's not something that exists really anywhere else around the world. It's very, everyone knows Israel is very informal. It's for better or for worse. But when it comes to finding a job, it's definitely to your advantage because, again, if you're resourceful and you do the research and you work hard, you really can make anything happen in this country. And when I speak to people who want to make Aliyah and they say, I've done this and I've done this, how can I do that in Israel? What I say to them is I don't think that's the right perspective. I think the right perspective is you're making Aliyah and now's a chance to figure out maybe what you want to do, maybe what your dream is, your professional dream, and aim there. Because again, if you are, a marketing person and you decide you want to work in sales and you have no experience in sales, again, you're not going to get a job in other ecosystems. Where in Israel, no one's going to say to you, I need someone with 2.5 years of experience and you only have 2 years of experience, therefore we're not going to accept you. It's just not the way the market works here. Nor is it a question of what degrees you have. I have a degree in political science. I've been working in marketing for 15 years. No one's ever asked me what degree I have. So everything's much more informal here and really opportunities are much more available if you are resourceful and you're willing to work at it. So that's something that I think is uniquely Israeli. And the opportunity here in Israel, as you probably know, I'm sure many of you have heard about the book Startup Nation. The opportunity here is incredible. And I think that, no matter how you want to look at the technology ecosystem, the business sector as a whole, there's something really remarkable happening here. And I think just for 1 second, if we look at, the story of Mitzrayim, right? We know what it says. The more the Egyptians persecuted the Jews, the more they multiplied and the more they reproduced. That's our story. And that's our story today. The more they terrorize us, the more we innovate. And I think that this is not an abstract motivational kind of thing. This is a real number backed by data. And we see this even this past year. Despite this war, Israel is breaking records. And that's true about M&A, mergers and acquisitions. That's true about funding. And it's true about, some of the leading investors in the world doubling down on Israel. So there's a tremendous, tremendous opportunity here. And this is, again, my experience. And if this might offend some people, I don't know. But I firmly believe that if you come here and you work hard at what and you're good at what you do, and you're willing to work hard, that you can make more money in Israel than you can in America. With exceptions, right? There are exceptions. If I'm a doctor making corporate America money, then it might be a little bit harder here. But generally speaking, if you're good at what you do and you're willing to work hard, you can break into the Israeli tech scene and you could make as much, if not more money in Israel. And this has been my experience. And, some people say, I came and I couldn't make it. I'm not judging anyone, but I find that in 2025, and I want to be very clear, in 2025, if you come to Israel and you can't make it, there was, in my opinion, forgive me, a lack of desire. If you really want to make it here in 2025 and you're resourceful, you can make it here, full stop. And so, I think it's a tremendous opportunity. And I think, by the way, not only is it an opportunity for people making Aliyah, but it's an opportunity for us here because, obviously the tech ecosystem is expanding and growing and it's incredible to see, but we always need more professionals. In fact, I think that the fact that someone's coming and they have English is already a huge advantage if you're going to be working in tech. For example, if you're in marketing, the fact that you have English and you have the American mindset, because Israeli companies are looking to expand to America. So you already have a head start in many other people. And so you have to understand that it is breaking into a new market. It is potentially starting a new career. And I'm not belittling or dismissing that, but the opportunity is incredible and it's extremely possible and doable to make as much money here as there. And I just, want to end off by saying that this is a real offer from me. If you do come to Israel and you want to break into this ecosystem, not a day goes by. In fact, my next call is with someone exactly in that situation who made Aliyah and isn't resourceful and doesn't have the network and doesn't really know how to facilitate or create that network. And so my offer is, if you come to Israel and you want to break into the business sector, the tech ecosystem, I can't help you much if you're a doctor or a lawyer because that's not my field. But if you want to break into the technology sector in Israel and you're here and you're willing to work hard, be in touch with me and I will be a resource to you. I will gladly connect you to anyone in this ecosystem. You would have to come to me and say, okay, I did some research. Here's a company that I think I could bring real value to. This is a great company. I've done my research. I like them. I'd love to connect. And if I don't know everyone, but if I know the company, I will gladly pass on an email to the CEO, to the founder, and tell them that you just made Aliyah and you're looking to break into the market. And I can all but guarantee, again, with few exceptions, that person, that CEO, will either meet you one-on-one for a cup of coffee, which is how everything gets done in this country, over cups of coffee, or he or she will connect you to the right person within the company to network and to see if there's an opportunity. And again, I want to be clear, that's not only companies that are hiring. That's not how the way people think here. Even if a company's not hiring, meaning they don't have anything on their website, there's no specific role open, but you think you could bring real value to this company, whether it's because of your past experience, whatever it may be, it could very well be that they'll meet you, they'll be impressed, and they will create a role for you. That is something that happens regularly, and I can only say that over the past decade or so, I've gotten over 700 people jobs in Israel, out of which I would say more than 50%, this is important, more than 50% did not have the necessary skills. And I want to just be very clear what that means. That means that if someone was looking for, an engineer that writes a certain type of code, this person might not write that type of code, but they're a talented person. And I recommended them, and almost in all of the cases, that person ended up excelling. So even if you don't have the specific skills that are on the job description, but you're a talented person, you're willing to work hard, you're a fast learner, you can facilitate opportunity here. And again, I'm happy to be that conduit and that catalyst to connect you to the ecosystem to help you break in, because we need you just like you need us. And so I'm looking forward. And of course, as I've said many times, when you come, shawarma's on me.
Thank you very much, Hillel. I just let everyone know that there have been over 200 registrants to this webinar, and we will be sending out a recording of the webinar probably by tomorrow. And if you do have questions, please put down the questions in the question and answer, and we will try to respond to those questions at the end of the seminar. So our next presenters will be kind of our rabbinical inspiration. And we have two of the world-leading rabbinic scholars, Rabbi Pruzansky, who's now in Modi'in, and Rabbi Alan Schwartz, who is a leading rabbi in the Upper West Side. So, Rabbi Pruzansky, it's all yours.
Rabbi Bloom, thank you very much. You hear me?
We hear you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, and really thank you for the Israel Inspiration Initiative and bringing us all together. I'm delighted to share this with my dear colleague, Rabbi Schwartz. I can confirm everything that Hillel Fuld is saying, and I especially admire what I like to call the idea of positive Aliyah. Very often we have almost, if not negative, coerced Aliyah, meaning people who have to come as refugees or fleeing a bad situation. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And even in the United States of America, there's certain pressures now that I think have surprised many Jews. But that should not be the primary motivation for Aliyah, that we're fleeing from something. It should rather be that we're running towards something. And running towards the land of Israel, it's a land, there's no other way to say it, it's a land of miracles. I don't know whether this is true or not, but I read last week that in the last year, the budget deficit here went down. How's that possible? In the middle of a war where there's so much increased spending, that's a nace. No one can explain it. But revenues must have been up, even though expenditures. So Hill is nodding. How does the budget deficit go down? It defies the laws of economics and of warfare. But nonetheless, that's the miraculous nature of the land of Israel. If anything, the great deficiency that we find, I think, in our world, and it goes back many, many centuries, it's something that Rav Kook expressed in one of his igrot. He said the Yesod HaGalut, the foundation of the exile, is that we don't really appreciate the value of Eretz Yisrael, of the land of Israel. If we don't value the land, then in effect, we are mimicking and duplicating the sin of the Meraglim, who after all, their sin was synopsized as Vayim Asu Beretz Chemda. They despised, they scorned the desirable, the coveted land. And to the extent that Jews in Israel for sure, but across the world, don't feel an innate, inherent connection to the land of Israel, it's a big chisaron in Jewish life. The Medrash tells us that Avram Avinu went place to place in the land of Israel at God's behest. Wherever he went, he say, Halavai, this should be my portion in the land of Israel. Halavai should be able to live here. And that's Eretz Chemda, the desirable land. It's the land that our forefathers and our foremothers coveted. And that itself should say something to the Jewish soul. If Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah coveted this land, then who are we to be blasé, nonchalant, indifferent to the existence of the land and our role in bettering it, in living in it. Because after all, this is where the Torah was meant to be implemented and lived in full vibrance of the land. Rav Kook commented on a pasuk that I can almost guarantee, I say about myself, we say every morning in Hodu, but we don't pay much attention to it. And maybe, if nothing else, tomorrow morning, I'll pay more attention to it. So right away in Hodu, we say that God enacted a covenant with Avram and made an oath to Yitzchak, and it was a chok liYaakov, liYisrael Brit Olam, an eternal covenant, saying, L'cha atein eretz Canaan, chevel nachalatchem. I will give the land of Canaan to you as your allotted heritage. By the way, the fact that we say this every morning, right at the beginning of davening, that itself should teach us something. But now here are the key words. Biotchem metei mispar, kimat vigarimba. You were few in number, small in number, few strangers in the land. And Rav Kook explained that normally amongst the nations of the world, people connect to their lands through zman, tzibur, or kviyut. Zman meaning the length of the residence, tzibur, the number of people you join with the community and you live in the land, and thirdly, the permanence of residence. That's how peoples, nations establish themselves on their lands. It's something to think about also. Every nation in the world came to its land through conquest. For some reason, it bothers the rest of the world that we had to conquer the land of Israel. Every nation conquered its land. But Rav Kook said, none of these three apply to the Jewish nation, because on some level, they're extrinsic to our existence. So with their large number of people, no. We're very few people when God promised us the land. The length of residence, kimat. It was few in years and decades. Avram Avinu lived there for a relatively short time. Yitzchak was there his whole life, but not Yaakov. Yaakov lived in the land, but twice he had to be exiled from the land. So that's not the secret of our inheritance, and certainly not the permanence of the residence, because vigarimba, we were just strangers there. Without the usual formula that applied to other nations, we connect to Israel in a totally different way. What is that way? That way is the Devar Hashem, God's word. That way is Brit Olam. It's the covenant that God made with us to give us this holy land in which to live. And that's the primary reason we should be here. That's positive Aliyah, to which I'll add just one other point. And that is, since I made Aliyah almost 5 years ago, I thought about it for many years, but you know how it is. I realized there's a profound difference between a participant in history and a spectator, a bystander to history. There's so much that American Jews do, and it's all welcome. But at the end of the day, we who live in America, we're spectators. We watch what's happening. We can cry, we can visit, we can say Tehillim. At the end of the day, we're not participants. The destiny is not necessarily theirs. It's in the land of Israel that we live the history of the Jewish people, and we participate, and we have all the ups and downs. Life here is a roller coaster. I just realized this morning, I hate to say it like this, but thank God for the chutim. I don't need an alarm clock anymore. They wake me up and I'm ready to hit the road. What? Even the attempts to curse us are really blessings. There are difficulties for sure, but it's the land that Hashem gave us. It's where he wants us to be. It's where he wants the Torah to be applied, and where he wants the history and destiny of the Jewish people to unfold. And that is the future, not only of the land and the state of Israel, that's the future of the people of Israel, wherever they are. I thank you very much.
I thank you very much, Rabbi Pruzansky. And let me please introduce, probably most people know Rabbi Schwartz. who is the rabbi of OZ. And just want to mention that virtually all the shuls in the Upper West Side are participating in this. So I thank you all. And Rabbi Schwartz, it's all yours.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Bloom. And we share some very valuable gems that are in Israel. I'm stuck here in Chutz La'aretz, but Rabbi Bloom and I share 8 grandchildren there, and I have a few others in other places. So yes, they're going to bring us there. V'heishiv lev avos al banim v'lev banim al avosam, and we all have a plan, and hopefully Kadosh Baruch Hu will allow us to realize that plan. Baruch Hashem, my shul has been losing members more precipitously through with COVID. But we've been losing members, Baruch Hashem, to Aliyah almost every month and a half. We're bidding farewell to members of the shul, whole families who are going. So that's our role, and I hope to join them soon, very soon. And I start with a drash from the Daf Yomi just a few days ago that takes note of a Masoretic anomaly in Sefer Yeshayahu, of a mem sofit in the middle of the word. It's called a mem sofit for a reason. It's supposed to be open in the middle of the word and closed at the end of the word. The pasuk essentially is darshaned by the Gemara as a prayer from Yeshayahu for the Kates, for the messianic arrival, for our redemption. And the pasuk says, "L'marbe hamisra u'l'shalom ein Kates," and the word "l'marbe" has a mem sofit. If you're not prepared with the laning, it's part of the Haftorah of Parshas Yisro. You might lane it l'sarbe in the Haftorah, but it's l'marbe. And the Gemara darshans that because Chizkiyahu did not adequately thank God for the salvation of Yerushalayim, that the mem of Mashiach, which he could have been, Bikesh HaKadosh Baruch Hu lasos Chizkiyahu Mashiach b'sancheriv Gog u'Magog, but it was not, because we did not see the call. We did not heed the call of the salvation that was just apparent. And a mistake made numerous times through our history, and Chizkiyahu could have had it then, but the mem of Mashiach was closed up so that Mashiach couldn't get out, Kivayachol. Radak in Sefer Nehemiah points to the exact opposite phenomenon, where there is a mem that is open at the end of a word. And the pasuk there is Vehi sover et chomot Yerushalayim asher heim prutzim. Nehemiah was evaluating the walls that had been destroyed to see how they could be rebuilt. And in that pasuk, heim prutzim, there is an open mem at the end of the word. So the Radak says that the job of the Jew is to switch the mems, so that when we are responsible for opening and closing the walls of Yerushalayim, when we can determine who comes and goes in Yerushalayim, the Radak wrote in the 13th century, that switches the mems, that closes the walls, and it opens the mem of Mashiach. We bring Nehemiah's open mem to Yeshayahu for Mashiach to emerge, and Yeshayahu switches his closed mem to Yerushalayim, to a city that we can determine who comes and goes. So according to this Radak, we are certainly living in Messianic times. I would say that Rashi would be a Fabrentana Zionist today. First Perush al HaTorah, he wants to establish a very important point, especially for this group which understands that point, but for us to spread around to all Jews. Rashi says that the whole point of being told about the creation story is koach ma'asav higid la'amo l'seis lahem nachlas goyim, so that we would understand the great koach in the creation, that we could receive the nachlas goyim, other nations that were there. But the fact is that if Rashi is so concerned about the people saying listim atem, they'll always say that. They'll always say listim atem. But according to that, listen carefully, the pasuk should have said, koach ma'asav higid la'amim, lo seis la'amo es nachlasam. Who is the one that needs to be notified about the Bereshit story? If it's to prevent from listim atem, then it's the nations who should be told this, not us. But that's precisely the point. We shouldn't care what they say. They'll always say listim atem. They will always protest at these Ivy League schools. They will always do that. The pasuk is for us, koach ma'asav yigid le'amo, so that we should know unequivocally. We should know that when Avram came to the land, it says, "V'aknani oz ba'aretz." The Canaanim were by then in the land. Hayokovesh es haaretz mizaro shel shem. We were there first. Chum went south to Africa. Yefet went north to Europe. We were in the Middle East. What's Chum? What's Canaan doing that far up? When we say now it's time for us to take this land, then they all of a sudden call out listim atem. We have to know. Koach masav yigid la'amo. We have to know unequivocally. I'm of course preaching to the choir on this call, but we have to spread that word out. That this is what Rashi meant for us to understand. Now the Malbim in Sefer Yirmiyahu says that one of the signs of that redemption was the Keva Tesovev Gover, that the woman shall encircle the man. The Malbim says the woman is the land of Israel, the man is the people of Israel. Not like Rashi says that the woman is the people of Israel and the man is God, but that the woman is the land of Israel. And the Keva Tesovev Gover, the Malbim wrote in the 1860s, saying that when we returned to Israel after the Babylonian exile, we were invited. There was no kibush then. It was nekeva tesovev gaver. Usually the man has to search after the woman, like it says in the beginning of the Seches Kedushin. Here, the woman came to meet the man. There was no kibush when we returned after the Babylonian exile. The Persians invited us. The very last word of Tanakh is v'yo'al. The first thing Hashem tells Avram is lech lecha. The last word in Tanakh is make aliyah, the invitation from the Persians. And the Malbim wrote in the 1860s, I predict that we will not have to rebel against the Goyim when it comes time to return. And even the Meshech Chochmah said that certain events of the 20s and the 30s point to, if you want to quote the Gemara at the end of Ksuvos, that the nations are inviting us back. We just had to hear the call. Well, now we don't have to worry about whether the nations invite us back or not. We determine that the walls can open and close if we want. And that means that we are living in the Messianic age. Radbaz wrote a tshuva about how the Rambam could write that it's forbidden to live in Egypt while living in Egypt. He said, Radbaz also was born in Egypt and made his way to Israel. He said that the Rambam was writing because it's mutter, it's allowed to live in Egypt for pragmatia, to live there temporarily. And he said that based on the Rambam in Perish HaMishnah in the 4th parak in Maseches Avodah Zarah, that potentially our temporary residence wherever we are makes that like the permitted residence. And that what makes residence temporary wherever we are is that we have a plan to make it to Israel. A temporary residence means that I'm only living here b'derech harai in Chutz La'aretz. The Jew always lives in Chutz La'aretz b'derech harai. That was the point of yesterday's Haftorah, of Yechezkel's Haftorah from Parshas Parah. That we're always living b'derech harai. And that is what this blessed program is about. And I thank you, Rabbi Bloom. Thank you for making this program possible so that everybody listening and every one of us can start to commit to showing how and why, in a practical sense, my residence in Chutz La'aretz is b'derech harai, because I have not just a theoretical plan, but a concrete plan. So I thank you for facilitating that. Yeshakach to everyone for being part of this, and we have to be those emissaries of what Rashi wanted to teach for everyone of Koach Masav Higid La'amo. Yishkoach everyone, and may this continue to be successful. And now I see that right next to my face is a balabas, Mark Sperling, who led the charge. So many are going month after month, Baruch Hashem, to facilitate that. And thank you all for making that possible.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Schwartz. And let me introduce very quickly Dr. Mark Sperling, who is from the Upper West Side, who made Aliyah very successfully, and he's going to share with you a few moments of some of his activities in making Aliyah. Marc, it's all yours.
Thank you so much, and it's a privilege and an honor to be part of the team, and to have such great personalities well known to the community. My wife and I are not in the same ranks. We are both retired academic physicians who had many trips to Israel. We are both the children of Holocaust survivors. There's a great deal of motivation in that, and every time we came, we were more turned on to coming permanently. And we made a decision 3 years ago to come to Israel, and we were greatly helped by being helped by Nefesh B'Nefesh for all the little problems that occur when you're trying to make any lengthy trip, let alone a trip of resettling in Eretz Israel. So although the process may be lengthy, it'll be facilitated by Nefesh B'Nefesh, not only for the trip, but we were warmly welcomed by them when we arrived. We also found that the social and cultural environment in Israel is very warm and welcoming. And although we come from Zionist homes and had some upbringing with Hebrew, we were not fluent in Hebrew. And nevertheless, fluent Hebrew was not a barrier to conversation or integration. In fact, being an Anglo in some ways is actually very thrilling, to hear accents from London, and to hear accents from Manchester, and to hear accents from Ireland, and to hear accents from Australia, which is where my wife and I come from. But yet we fit in, and yet we get along very, very well. And we were warmly accepted by the community. If you reach out, you'll be reached back. And our social life has never been busier or better. The only enemies we're making is by constantly saying, sorry, we can't join you this Shabbos because we're already booked. And they want to know what is this formula, why we're always booked. But we are, and we try and repay all of our friends. And we have a really an outstanding group of people from various backgrounds, from various countries. But yes, they are Anglos. Indeed, actually, I might say that our Hebrew is also getting better. Now, the sense of freedom and belonging as Jews is a very special, especially in times like this that we're living. It's unparalleled in any place in the world. And if you grow up in a place like Australia, when I grew up, it was so warm and welcoming. And today it is so scary to read about the anti-Semitism that we see in countries like the United States and Britain and Ireland and Australia. It's scary, but it's the opposite here. It's the unparalleled place to be in the world, despite the current situation. But perhaps because of it, we consider it a privilege and an honor to be here in these times, to be part of this amazing country and people. And I think you would appreciate the same thing if you came here, being Anglo or not. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sperling. Let me move on. We heard a very inspirational speech by Hillel Fuld on the tremendous opportunities that exist in Eretz Israel from a professional perspective. I'd like to now pass to Marianne Gutgold from Givahim, who'll give you some very practical recommendations about finding a job in Eretz Israel.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Nice to meet you, and thank you for this wonderful webinar. I think is very, very important. So who is Givahim? Who we are? So we are a non-profit organization that is dedicated to help Olim and to prepare Olim before the Aliyah. We give necessary tools, and we give skills, and we really, really try to give all the platform that we can to help Olim before the Aliyah, okay? Our mission is very simple. We want to facilitate the successful integration, both social and, of course, labor in the Israeli labor market, okay? In Givahim, we really, really like to talk in numbers. So I can tell you that Givahim was created almost 20 years ago by a very dear friend, Michael Ben Saadun. We are during these years, we are in partnering with more than 1,000 companies in different fields, not only in the tech, okay? I saw a few questions, so I'm just saying not only in the tech industry. During the years and the programs, we have more than 800 volunteers, mentors, okay? This is very, very important because in our programs, we think that having a mentor in your same profession can really do the big difference. Over the years, we had more than 8,000 alumni. Imagine the number of Zolim that really got the chance to be with us, and we really helped a lot of them. Since we are dedicated to help all over the world and not in one specific region, we are working in 5 languages, and we were lucky to help more than 63 countries of origin, okay? Our Aliyah program exists in 5 languages. And I can tell you that most of our Olim are academic. Now, how we do it? Kvaim is divided in 2 major parts, the Aliyah and the post-Aliyah. In Kvaim Aliyah, this is a free program, again, dedicated to help Olim prepare the Aliyah in all the aspects. And how we do it? We do it in 4 major steps. The first one is to have an introduction meeting in order to understand and to know the Oleh, his needs, understand if he's doing Aliyah alone, with his family, kids, school, etc. The second thing is we are having our own unique platform of networking. As Hillel mentioned in the beginning, the major or the most important thing in Israel that we can say is having a network, okay? If you want, you can almost meet with anyone, and having a good network before you're making Aliyah is a big thing. So we do it by our platform. In the platform, you can see a lot of things, a lot of information, a lot of recorded webinars. The third service that we give is we have 5 WhatsApp groups in languages. As I said, the Aliyah program exists in English, Spanish, French, Portuguese, and Russian. So the Oleh can decide which group he wants to join. I can tell you a funny fact that most of the Olim speaks at least 2 languages. So this is amazing because each group have its own entity, and we publish different things in the groups. The 4th service that we give, which is extremely important, is each Oleh, listen carefully, each Oleh can have 3 personal consultations with experts. And we have a very nice list of 7 subjects, from planning your budget to understand how the medical department in Israel is working, or to understand how the schools, what are your rights, etc. So really the Oleh can decide which help he needs. And we give that, of course, free of charge. A very new thing that we just, we are proud to announce is a special program for AI specialists. And with your permission, I will want to present you for 1 minute Maya Schofel, our AI program manager. Please, Maya, the mic is yours. She will be the best to explain 1 minute about this amazing project.
Okay, so hi, everybody. I hope you hear me. Maayan, can everybody hear me well?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So this year has been announced by the chief scientist in Israel as the year of AI, which means Israel doesn't want to be left behind with other countries that are trying to achieve their best results in AI field. What does it mean? It means that if you have a family member or a friend or a daughter or a son that are computer science and they have a AI experience, we can promise them through Gvahim to sign a contract with a good company before they make Aliyah, which means they will be, they will come to Israel the best way possible with a contract and with a salary which is promised to them. For more explanation, please contact Maayan, and she arranged meetings for everyone which is interested.
Thank you, Maya. And
Yes.
the second part is, as I said, we have the the post-Aliyah. So the post-Aliyah, we have our unique program, Kvaim Career Center. Okay, this program empowers Olim with really the essential knowledge, practical tools, and network, again, for a quality job in Israel. We do it in a 1.5 month course, okay? This is only for Olim who speaks English and are in Israel already. And for the last, I promised some tips how we do it, okay? Some tips to set yourself up for a successful professional integration in Israel. So we do it very simply. We do a research. I mean, in all the process of the Aliyah, the important thing is to to help the Olim to prepare, and to prepare meaning do research for the Israeli job market, okay, identify fields, okay, and how your skills, for example, translate into what we are looking here. Again, we're talking over and over again about the network, connect with professionals in your field that are already in Israel, and you can do it with our platform and not only, okay, join online forums, etc. Learn Hebrew, guys. English is a huge added value, no doubt about it. But without Hebrew, and we are not speaking about being fluent in Hebrew, but without the language, okay, the integration will take more time. And we need to say it loudly. We don't really, most of the Olim prepare the Aliyah at least a year before. That's enough time to start learning Hebrew, okay? Prepare your CV, okay, or portfolio if you have. So we do that. We help with our job career orientation consultants. We help you to prepare your CV, okay? And
so Maayan,
yes?
what I'd like to do is you have a wonderful set of charts that I will send out to all the registrants.
Yes, please do.
I think it'll be very, very useful.
Okay,
so
amazing.
Let me just
and of course,
move on.
you're more than welcome to contact me again after that. In the presentation, you have my contacts, and thank you very much for the opportunity. Good luck to everyone.
Thank you very much, Maayan. One of the most important things, especially for people who have children, are what type of education is appropriate for your children, and what type of after-school activities to help your children integrate into the Israeli society. So I'd like to ask Rafi Shulman from Oleh Advisors to talk about the educational opportunities, and then I'm going to ask Rabbi Kroneneberg, who is starting this September a very special high school in Beit Shemesh that he will describe. So Rafi, it's all for you.
Thank you, Rabbi Bloom. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. What I really want to talk about is the overview of the educational opportunities, because I think for many younger families or families with kids, this is one of the biggest challenges. And what I really want to do is encourage you to really consider making Aliyah, even if you have older children. If you had asked me a few years ago when we started Oleh Advisors, which is the organization that I run, what's the cutoff date for when you should make Aliyah or not make Aliyah? I would say about 10, 11 years old is when it becomes much more challenging for children if they make Aliyah. That has changed dramatically over the past few years because there are a lot more programs, there's a lot more schools, there's a lot more support. And what we're seeing now is we're seeing that our families are coming with much older children, right? It could be 14, 15, 16, sometimes even 17, 18-year-old children. And I think that's something that really you need to factor in if you're thinking about making Aliyah in the near future or down the road. Of course, the sooner you come, the easier I think it will be in most cases for children. The younger they are, the easier it is for them to adapt and learn Hebrew. But even if your kids are a bit older or will be older, I really want to stress the fact that it shouldn't be a reason why you shouldn't make Aliyah. One of the pieces of advice that we give is for people to consider all options. And what I mean by that is that the different communities have a variety of different schools, but what's very common in Israel is that the parents or the children will bus. They'll go to other schools that might not be in their neighborhood. Maybe they're in a different neighborhood in the city, or maybe it's in a different community altogether. They'll hop on a bus. A lot of the schools organize the busing so they don't just need to get on a public bus and figure out how to get to schools. But I think what we have found is that everybody's different. Kids are different, and maybe two of your kids will do well in one school, and maybe the third kid will do better in another school. And so it really comes down to preparation. And as Maayan mentioned, a lot of people are making or are planning their Aliyah way in advance. And I really believe that the more time and effort that you can put into researching all the different schools, all the different options, will really set you up for success. What's amazing is that the schools, the administrators are more than happy to do Zoom calls, to meet with parents, to discuss the concerns, to address the concerns. And ideally, if you can come on a pilot trip, if you can come on a trip for, let's say, a week to 2 weeks beforehand with your children and actually physically go and meet the administrators, see the schools, there's nothing better than seeing things with your own eyes. And so if you can do that and really explore all options, then that really is much better. You can always eliminate, you can always reduce the list after that. But when you're creating this game plan, this action plan, consider all your options, cast a wider net, look at them, and then you can always narrow it down. The last point that I want to mention, and this is very important, is that it's managing expectations, right? And I'm sure you've all heard stories about the schools, and the schools in Israel aren't necessarily better or worse, right? They're just different. And so that means that you need to be ready for that. You need to understand that. For example, the class sizes are bigger. You could have 25, 30 kids in a class. The school days are shorter. School could start at 8 o'clock, and maybe in elementary school, it could end at 1:30, right? It's much less formal, so things are much more fluid. And again, at the end of the day, if you look at the Israeli culture, if you look at kids do well here. They do well in school. They'll do well in elementary school. They'll move on to middle school, high school. They'll go into the army or Shirt Leumi. And by and large, the schools really set up the kids for success. So the key is really on the parents when you're planning your Aliyah, right? Keep in mind that there are a lot of options now for older kids. Consider all your options. And I really want to encourage you to move the plan, because in our experience, we made Aliyah in 2015 from New Jersey with 4 kids. They love it here. They wouldn't go back if they had a choice. And I think it's amazing as parents to look at them, to see them grow, to see them contribute to the country and be part of it. And I really want to encourage you all to see your plans. So it's been a pleasure, and I'll see you again in a few minutes to talk about the healthcare.
Okay, so I'd like to introduce Rabbi Shimon Kronenberg, who is in the process of starting a brand new high school in Beit Shemesh, focused in Anglo kids. Now, I want to let you know that there are many schools throughout Eretz Yisrael that actually are focusing in and supporting the Anglo children as they make Aliyah. Now, as Rafi mentioned, we're now seeing many, many more families who have children of between the ages of 10 and 16 who are making Aliyah, and there are places for them in Eretz Yisrael so they can really bloom and prosper through the education process. So, Rabbi Kronenberg, it's all yours.
Thank you. Thank you for everyone for being here. My name is Shimon Kronenberg, and I'm opening a high school in Meretz Hashem this coming September called Mesifta Yisod Yisrael of Beit Shemesh. Just a little background of how we got here. Broadly speaking, there's always been 3 main reasons. If you're on this call, it's a good chance that you've been connected to Eretz Yisrael, you've been connected to Israel your entire life. It's a value of yours, just like it's a value of that I grew up with. But circumstantially, there's reasons that we stayed in America, or wherever we came from. You can broadly narrow them down to community, parnasa, and chinuch. The communities in America, the communities in Eretz Yisrael, there was a little bit of a gap. What I can tell you is where I live in Ramat Beit Shemesh, there's nothing missing if you're looking for a community, not just Ramat Beit Shemesh, other parts of the country. That has, in our opinion, inverted. In terms of parnasa, Hillel alluded to earlier, the opportunities for parnasa here are unbelievable. And whether you're working an international job, an American job, an Israeli job, there's just so much opportunity here. And frankly, you're surrounded by the best people. The last thing really is the chinuch of our children. There's a narrative that has developed over the years. And I was just, as Rafi just alluded to, you take a kid to Israel past XYZ age, he's going to feel out of place, misunderstood, confused, and he or she is going to encounter some serious challenges in their development and ultimate integration. It's an important component of Israeli society. As more families have moved here over the last number of years, the educational system here in many different schools has become more and more Anglo-friendly, giving supplementary support to children, especially those who come here older, a little less malleable in terms of their life experience, and really supporting them to become integral parts of Israeli society to really find their unique place and contribution here. As we know, necessity is really the driver of all innovation. And the innovation of the Anglo-friendly school concept has driven significant advancements in that department. However, we know the challenges that still exist. First of all, socially, American kids come from a different background. We have different tastes. You might like American football, for example. There's pedagogical differences in the schools. I taught in a high school in Teaneck, New Jersey called Heichal the last 10 or so years. And I can tell you there's significant pedagogical differences in the way we approach our children's development in America versus the approach here in Israel. And we've all heard over the years of the hashkafic dichotomy that exists here that maybe does not exist the same way in America. And I want to address those each one at a time. Socially, there are now more and more people here that share the background of the American child and the American social atmosphere. Your child will come here and they will find immediately, especially if you move to a community that is populated by Olim, surrounded by people who understand them, mechanchim, mechanchos who understand them as well. Pedagogically, the Israeli community has moved much closer to the way we approach things, which is generally considered a more holistic approach, where it's not just about the X's and O's of math, science, Gemara, Chumash. It's a lot about the individual's development through things like music, through things like mentorship and relationships and things like that. And I would like to say very boldly that the dichotomy of hashkafos that existed here over the years, we don't need to get into how that developed. The dichotomy that does not necessarily exist in America, that really people were always told to come here, you have to go left, you have to go right. There are enough of us here that we are building a legitimate middle track that embraces the best of all worlds and really is an extension and reflection of where we come from. I'm opening up a high school, which is really part of a much larger Chinuch ecosystem for boys, girls, which is going to be high school and beyond. Additionally, a middle school in the short future. That is really the outgrowth of the massive exponential growth of the Olim community, and not just for the new Olim, but also for people who have been here for years, who are still vibe much more with the American social, pedagogical, and hashkafic approach. It's called Mesifta Yesod Yisrael of Beit Shemesh. If you are making Aliyah anytime soon, with whether it be middle school or above, boys or girls, we'd love to be in touch with you and just general talk about the opportunities here in Eretz Yisrael.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rabbi Kroneneberg. Now, as Rafi mentioned, that many of the schools, especially the younger ages, they get out of school at 1:30 or maybe 2 o'clock. So what do they do after that? Well, there's an organization that has significant roots in the United States, NCSY, and NCSY Israel has become a very significant part of the social development of our children here in Eretz Yisrael. And it's my pleasure to introduce Michael Kahn, who I believe is the executive director of NCSY Israel, to talk a little bit about it. Michael?
Hi, thank you, Rabbi Bloom. It's a real pleasure and honor to be here. Not just because to share this virtual stage with so many very special people, but also, I guess, to be one of the first faces to greet many of the prospective Olim. So it's really a tremendous zechut to be here. And I just want to jump right in, really echoing and continuing on what Rav Shimon said, or Rav Kronenberg. I mean, I'm going to go with Rav Shimon, so we'll go by first name basis. That things have changed. Things dramatically have changed in terms of the resources and I would say the community structures throughout the years in terms of what Aliyah has evolved into. For so many in the past, it used to be you would come off the boat and as you know, it's a midrash. I'm not really sure if it is really a midrash, but it talks about how Am Yisrael, they didn't change their name, their language, their dress. And because of that, we left Mitzrayim. And the truth is, many people, when they make Aliyah, they're not changing their names, they're not changing their language, they're not changing their dress. And they're making Aliyah, and they're being redeemed, and they're entering a new portal of redemption. Where do we come in with all that? Although it's true that there's a lot of people, and many of us, you know, we make Aliyah, and we find ourselves home. But at the same time, although we find ourselves home, we sometimes find ourselves a bit of a stranger in our own homeland, which for many of us, that's the last thing we want, and definitely the last thing, not just for ourselves, but for our children. And when we, you know, myself, part of a team, you know, recognizing the challenges that specifically teenagers have when they make Aliyah, as well as even kids that are younger, like we were discussing on this call, it could be ages, you know, after 10 years old more, where some of the harder challenges come in terms of the, you know, dealing with language, dealing with culture, dealing with the social limitations. There's, thank God, a lot of support from family, a lot of support from friends, from community. Schools do their best, and thank God there's many different types of schools even that give that type of support. But to really understand the challenges that teenagers are going through, and not just what they're going through as a teen, but also the lives that they're going to be, God willing, leading and heading to post high school, which is a totally different conversation that they would have been having had they been in the States. They need guidance, they need mentorship, and that shouldn't become something that just becomes this tremendous gray area of their lives. It should be clear. They should know what paths lie in front of them. And not only they should know the paths that lie in front of them, but they should have the guidance to make sure that the paths they're going to be heading towards are going to be paths of light. And that not only that, but during their challenging years, again, I'm going to use the word challenging because it doesn't mean that it has to be bad. It's a challenge. High school years are challenging, no matter where you're going to find, no matter which country you find yourselves in raising teenagers, the years are challenging when teens themselves are going through so much, whether they're developing on a physiological level, a psychological level, their own emotional level. They're trying to figure out who they are. And that all ties in to also who they want to be as Jews. And if you think about that, if you take a kid from everything they know and all of a sudden you plot them into a new world where there's a new name, there's a new language, there's a new dress, it can be a bit scary. Now, just because it can be scary, again, I'm like being very open and transparent to everyone, that doesn't mean there's not a tremendous opportunity that lies ahead of us. And within NCSY Israel, we started 10 years ago. Thank God the program and what we've been able to offer has grown exponentially, tremendously, thanks to our parent organization, the OU, thanks to partners such as Nefesh B'Nefesh. And thank God, we really were found now not just providing regional programming, whether it's a Shabbaton, whether it's a big full-day learning program coming up called Yair. Those who are in Israel, April 7th, please, you're more than welcome to join us. Mega events, whether we're providing, programming in co-ed settings or programming separate all boys, all girls programming. We're providing madrichim. We're providing advisors. We're providing those that are post-high school, that are post-Sher Leumi, post-army, to be the madrichim and madrichot that your kids need. The ones that understand exactly what they're going through, either because they themselves went through it, or they themselves are part of, different communities. They have, from different families that they themselves have gone through the Aliyah circuit, through the challenges and through everything that comes with it. And they get it. And they know exactly what it is that a teen needs. And not only for what they need for their future, but for the here and now in terms of how to grow through their high school experience. Like I said, we're servicing not just teens on like a more national and regional level, but also on we call it chapter on a local level. Primarily, we're found in our 5 chapters: Gush Etzion, Yerushalayim, Renana, Beit Shemesh, Modi'in. But also we're found in different areas within those respective sections. So in the north, right now, God willing, we'll be launching programming in Zichron Yaakov. There's more that's happening, and God willing, more that will be happening. And as old and / as young as we are, we're really just at the beginning. We're looking forward to doing more. And of course, you can reach out to us. We have also a summer program now that is available for teenagers that for many, in terms of what are the options for teens to have a successful, and I would say productive summer, are very limited. So we're always looking. We're always looking to see what are those other areas that teens can gain from, that as much as schools can provide for their teens, there's limitations in terms of whether the structure, in terms of what goes on in a school setting, that we ourselves as informal educators can really provide, can create a world of meaning for a lot of these teens, and a place that they could just be themselves. They could speak in English. We also have teens that are participating in our programs that do speak Hebrew as well. Also, great opportunity for them to meet teens like that can also help them integrate into their own respective communities. And I think the biggest thing, like we started, is that they can feel like they belong. They can feel much less of an immigrant and much more of a citizen. I think that's what we all want. We want all of our teens, all of our children, when they make Aliyah, to feel at home. And if we could be one part of that to make it feel that much more like home, then Dayenu. B'ezras Hashem, we should be zochet to do that.
Thank you very much, Michael. One of the major questions that always comes up is communities. What community should we look at for our particular family? And we're very fortunate to have 2 people, the next 2 speakers, Ziva Glantz, who's probably one of the experts in Eretz Yisrael about different types of Anglo communities, and she's going to be talking a little bit about that, and Yossi Goldin from Mizrachi, who's been working with the National Council of Young Israel. Ziva, it's yours. Ziva, you there?
You're mute, Ziva.
My apologies. Very happy to be here, and been promoting Aliyah for the past 10 years through professional connections, working with the government, promoting group Aliyah and creating new neighborhoods for Olim. But just to give chizuk to what everybody here has said, I actually have been promoting this. I made Aliyah as a teenager, came here as a teenager like Hillel Fuld also, and really since then have been promoting the concept. And even with older kids, it is possible. I always have a few rules of Aliyah, which I tell people, the keys to success, so to speak. The first is to always come and make sure you have a support network. That's why we created something like Lashuv, which is the professional volunteer network that I created in order to promote group Aliyah. We found that the highest rates of people who go back to their countries of origin are people that went back because they felt that they lacked a community. And sometimes that was even after a good number of years being here, but it's very, very important to create a support network for yourself. The second thing I wanted to mention is that when you come, and another advantage to having that support network is the first thing you do is you always ask a Vatik resident before you do anything in the beginning, whether that's a doctor's appointment or going to a government office. This is a cheat sheet moment. It's very important. Remember to go to a Vatik resident. If you come and you have a group Aliyah and you come with a support network and you move together with people in the same place, it helps you to have that chizuk, to have that familiarity. You're coming either because you have familiarity with these people from a geographical location prior, or you're the same hashkafa. You form together as a group and you become each other's friends and family. So just to give a quick overview of some of the different options that people may or may not have heard of, we'll talk about the major names that all the the neighborhoods that people have heard of, but also some that you might not have heard of. I'll start in the south and we'll go from the north. The first I'm going to mention is Karmei Gat. It's located in the south. It's right above what's called Otef Aza, which everybody's heard now, the Gaza envelope. And it's very appropriate for people who are 25 to 35 years old. It's a Datilumi community. It's a new neighborhood. It's being built as part of the city of Kiryat Gat, but it has its own infrastructure, its own schools, and it's a great option. It's also a little bit more affordable. And therefore, a lot of people who are graduating out of, let's say, Bar Ilan and the Givat Shmuel area are going down to Karmei Gat. Right below Karmei Gat is a place called Kiryat Malachi. And there's a project that people might have heard of called Karmei Hanadiv. I'm very honest in what I promote and what I don't promote. I have some hesitations in promoting Karmei Hanadiv for Olim, simply because the city of Kiryat Malachi is one socioeconomically is very challenged. And therefore, the help in the schools that the kids are going to receive or not receive when they're making Aliyah and they need that extra support is a challenge there. And I would encourage people to maybe think twice about moving there, even if the prices are more affordable. Moving up along the map, we get to the Efrat and Gush Etzion area, which I'm sure everybody has heard of. There are new neighborhoods going up in Efrat. It's much more apartments as opposed to the houses that used to be built there. The whole area of Gush Etzion is being expanded. There are new areas that are now being proposed for development there in areas like Gvaot and Masot Yitzchak. Those are more like a 3 to 5 year option out if you're looking for a longer term plan. But there are some definitely options in the Gush Etzion area, and in general, it has a tremendous infrastructure, obviously, for Olim. Most of Gush Etzion is in some variation and form Olim from different countries. Then we get to Jerusalem. There's different neighborhoods of Yerushalayim, obviously, and each one is appropriate for different contingencies and groups. The one I wanted to focus on now is Arnona. People might not have heard of. It's in the back of Yerushalayim by Ramath Orah or Talpiot. It has its own English-speaking Young Israel, which is an advantage. There's a great group of people that have gone there, a lot of energy. It's near the U.S. consulate. It is more affordable. Obviously, Yerushalayim, anything you're talking about in Yerushalayim, so affordability becomes very relative, but it is more affordable. It's very close to the Baka German colony in Katamon area, which is another area where there's a lot of Anglos. Again, this is less affordable. These are the areas that are the most expensive in Yerushalayim, along with areas like Talbiya, but has tremendous Anglo presence. That means there's English-speaking shuls. You'll have plenty of English-speaking neighbors. You have proximity to the city. So those are all advantages. If you're looking for something a little bit, generally speaking, a little bit more to the right religiously, there is the Ramot neighborhood. There are houses available there starting at about 6 million shekel minimum, but there are houses there. There are trees there also. People therefore like it a little bit better. But it is a little bit more of a right-wing community. I would say I'd put it as, right of Yeshiva University. and even to the American Haredi type of sector. There's also another neighborhood that has been developing, which is French Hill. It's in the back of Yerushalayim. It is in proximity of Arab neighborhoods. People have to know that. I'm going to put this together with also neighborhoods like Neve Yaakov and even the Yishuv of Adam, which people, generally speaking, have never heard of, but they're right in the back of the Jerusalem corridor over there, going out towards the Binyamin region. And these areas have apartments available. In French Hill specifically, there's a lot of urban renewal going on. So therefore, a lot of new units are coming up literally daily. And there is a very strong Anglo community there. Again, a lot of it is sort of expats from the Ramat Eshkol migration. So it is a little bit more of a right-wing community there, but there's a big mix in French Hill. The next community I want to move up to is actually Mevaseret. I live here, so I can talk about it very personally. But essentially what's happening in Mevaseret is it's the new frontier of Jerusalem. And there's a lot of people who are moving here who, again, are looking for a community that's been very elusive thus far in the array of communities here in Israel, which is that community that, again, is right YU, American Haredi, Eish Kodesh, if you're familiar with these terms. It's a little bit of what's called a nishmati type of community. It's more open, more relaxed, but a right-wing religious community. And there's a whole group of Anglos that are moving here now. You can get houses here. It has all of the infrastructure, and it's about 30 to 40% cheaper than what you would get for those same houses in Jerusalem. Then we're going to move to Beit Shemesh. Obviously, everybody's heard of Beit Shemesh. So I'm not even going to dwell and say so much about it, but I just want to focus a little bit on the area of Beit Shemesh proper, as opposed to Ramat Beit Shemesh, which is what usually people hear about. Beit Shemesh proper has a beautiful Dati Leumi, or modern Orthodox community. It's a very, very strong infrastructure there. You have the best infrastructure there in terms of schools, soft landings, help for Olim. Obviously, that's the hub. And there are other areas of Ramat Beit Shemesh that should be noted, namely Mishkafayim, which is, again, a little bit more right-wing. Then there's a new area, which is like Ramat Beit Shemesh Hey, or Neve Shamir, which is for younger couples, generally in their 20s to 30s. So all of these are a little bit more of the American Haredi bend to them, but there are various pockets of neighborhoods that you can find in Ramat Beit Shemesh where you can definitely find the people that you feel closest with. Moving to the Modi'in area, we're going to just talk about this as a region. Obviously, the city of Modi'in has the Buchman area, which is the famous area where Olim have historically always been living. There's many neighborhoods now that have Olim there. You also have around Modi'in, which obviously provides all the infrastructure, malls and doctors and incredible infrastructure there. But you have a new neighborhood of Mevo Modi'in, which is actually the reconstruction of the Karlbach Moshav. A lot of people do not realize that it's being reconstructed. There are cottages or attached townhouses that are going up there. And generally speaking, the prices are about 5.5 million shekels. So it's not on the cheaper side, but you are living in the middle of a forest. It's very pastoral. And therefore, people who are looking for something like that should definitely be checking out Mevo Modi'in. Hashmonaim, which has historically always been an Anglo place, is also now having new expansions available to it. It's a Dati Leumi community, so it means modern Orthodox community, has its own schools. So now there are options available there as well. And the last area that I want to mention in the Modi'in region is Neria, which is an Israeli Dati Leumi yeshuv, but there are a number of Anglos there. They're very, very happy. So they have like their own kind of hub there within the Israeli yeshuv. And it's younger families, generally speaking, with kids up to like early teens. That's Neria. Moving along, we have Ra'anana and its suburbs. The city of Ra'anana, many people are familiar with. I want to really, really recommend people to check it out. The social chizuk that people get and the social structures in Ra'anana have been absolutely fantastic in the past few years. Everybody who's moved there in terms of Olim are super happy. So, people might not have thought about it beforehand. It's a city, it's expensive, whatever it is. If it works for you, just know that people are moving there and are very happy. Sorry, I'm a little sick. But around Ra'anana, there's a lot of options also. There's the area of Tel Mund and Kfar Yavetz. Now, most people never have heard of either of these places. There are Anglos in both these places, and specifically Kfar Yavetz, which I call the Tuscany of Israel, is something that people definitely should be looking at. It's a fabulous place. Drive through orange groves, and they're building houses there for much more affordable. So you're 10 minutes from Ra'anana. You have all the infrastructure and schools of Ra'anana, but you're living in the middle of Tuscany in a beautiful house that's newly constructed, and you can buy it for, in mid 3 million shekels, which is very good for that area. Moving a little bit further north is the Pardes Chana area. Again, it's a beautiful pastoral type of area. It looks like a moshav almost. It has a very organic kind of hippie vibe to it. Very relaxed. You have the schools available to you in Pardes Chana itself or in Zichron Yaakov, which is right next door. You're right near the beach. It's a very beautiful mixed community. Everybody kind of vibes together religiously. So you have a lot of different colors and stripes there. But Pardes Chana is also a very big growing Anglo community. And finally, just moving all the way up, I want to mention Katzrin and the whole Golan region, because affordability-wise, there's a lot of opportunities going up in the Golan. And in terms of your environment, obviously people were looking for that same green pastoral environment where they can have a little bit more space, a little bit more land. Katzrin in the Golan is a beautiful option as well. Just to finish off, I want to tell everybody and give chizuk for everybody who's here and thinking about Aliyah, that it's absolutely feasible, just like everybody said. And there are opportunities here. People are very successful now. You know, the boxes that used to exist beforehand, like Rabbi Kronenberg was saying, have blurred much more, and you can really find your way here. And just keep in mind that in the beginning, you know, I always tell people that there's a 3 to 5 year rule. Is that the first 3 to 5 years, you know, Hashem is, God is pulling off some of the layers of chutz la'aretz that we've accumulated on ourselves. And sometimes it can be a process, but just remember that it's not always going to be like that. You'll hit your own personal bedrock and you'll be built up as the more authentic, stronger version of yourselves. And just make it till then. And you'll always hear from most Olim that they're always happy, no matter what. They're always happy that they did it and they were successful in the end.
Thank you very much, Ziva. I just want to introduce Rabbi Goldin, who's been working with Mizrachi together with the National Council of Young Israel. And there's some very interesting projects that if you could just spend a minute just talking about of what you guys are doing there.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. First of all, thank you for inviting me. It's a real privilege to be here with all of these wonderful speakers. I've actually learned a tremendous amount in the last hour or so, despite having lived here in the last 18 years. So really, yasher koach to everyone who's doing such amazing work. So I work in a joint position for Young Israel in Israel and World Mizrachi. The position really was created even I would say before October 7th, but I think the need has only expanded since October 7th. The realization came was that as many people have pointed out, the amount of Anglos that are coming and making Aliyah continues to grow, and the main Olim centers, the communities, the main areas where Olim are going, continue to grow dramatically. And as Ziva pointed out so wonderfully, the areas where people are moving to are no longer limited to those 4 or 5 Anglo centers. But now you have Anglo communities really popping up all over the place, continuing to go further down south and further up north than I think has been in quite a long time. And so in Mizrachi Young Israel, the thought was to try to understand exactly what could we be doing. Mizrachi and Young Israel very often are institutions that have been focused more on chutz la'aretz. Mizrachi in particular has had a focus more on trying to reinvigorate religious Zionism in countries across chutz la'aretz. And then the question was, once people are successfully come here, what can be done? How can we support those communities after they make Aliyah? And so we embarked on a project, like I said, it really began right before October 7th, but it just continued to grow, which we call the Mizrachi Young Israel Shuls Network. And the idea is to create an opportunity for all of these shuls and communities, both in the major Olim centers and in the communities, the new communities that continue to grow, to create an opportunity for them to network with each other, by connecting the rabbis with each other, connecting the lay leaders of these shuls with each other in a way that enables them to support each other, both practically and also just to share ideas, to brainstorm and to help each other. The idea being that if there are Olim shuls all over the country that continue to grow, and many of them have similar needs, even though every community is different, there are many needs that overlap. And the more that we can create a network connecting these, the Rabbanim and the leaders of these communities, the better everyone will be in terms of being able to provide the services for these communities. So that is the project that we've been working on. We currently have a group of approximately a WhatsApp group of approximately 50 Rabbanim of Olim communities where the Rabbanim are able to share and help and support each other and compare notes in various different ways. We're looking to create something similar for the lay leaders of these communities. We run programming a few times a year where the Rabbanim come together. We hope to do the same for Rebbitzins or for rabbis' wives, as well as lay leaders, to create more opportunities for these shuls to continue to connect, and thereby hoping to create better services for Olim communities in a larger sense. So that's the work that we've been doing.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Goldin. I just want to kind of build on what Rabbi Goldin said. It's a whole issue around networking. One of the things that the Israel Inspiration Initiative is really focusing in on is creating groups in cities throughout the United States. We already have groups in Fair Lawn, New Jersey, in Highland Park, Edison, New Jersey, in West Hempstead, New York, and now we're setting up one here in the Upper West Side. And Chad Hopkowitz will be kind of pulling together the different members of the shuls who are interested in joining this group. And this will be a network of people who are interested in Aliyah. We'll be using it as a mechanism to provide you additional information. It's been very successful in these other towns where we brought in people to talk about finance, healthcare, jobs, and it's really very tailored to the particular city so people can network and share their issues and their interests, so we can help you take that next step in your Aliyah process. So I encourage everyone, if you're in the Upper West Side area, to reach out to Chad. We have a WhatsApp group for each one of these cities. We're setting up one for the Upper West Side. And if there are people here who are listening who are from other towns who would like to set something up for your town, please let me know, and we'd be more than glad to create a group for your very specific town. Now, what was mentioned earlier, one of the key items that is important to everyone is healthcare. And Rafi Shulman is going to give us a quick overview of the healthcare system. And in fact, we just had a session with the Highland Park Edison group focusing an hour just on healthcare. So we recognize that we're just touching on some of the highlights of the Israeli healthcare system, but each one of these groups will have an opportunity to focus in on areas that they think are of interest to them. So Rafi, it's all yours.
Thank you, Rabbi Bloom. So one of the wonderful trends that we're seeing over the past few years is that all the people are making Aliyah to Israel, where in the past they would move to Florida, Vegas, California, and we're seeing more and more people who are in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and even older make Aliyah. In fact,
I finished my parts. I'm just listening to it.
Excuse me, somebody just has some background noise. If you can just mute your microphone, thank you. In fact, one of the things that we saw a couple of years ago is one of our employees helped the parents make Aliyah from Chinuch at the age of 101 and 97. The father was 101 and the mom is 97. Baruch Hashem, they're living in Netanya and they're loving it. And so I think this is something that we're seeing more and more of. And I think people are making Aliyah for a number of reasons. First of all, the weather, of course. The second thing is that there's just so many opportunities to volunteer and contribute. And of course, there's a lot of different organizations. One of the concerns that people used to have in the past doesn't really apply so much anymore is the healthcare system. And in fact, a lot of people feel that the healthcare system in Israel is better than a lot of the systems in countries around the world. And that's something that I really want to reiterate, is that there are amazing centers here, amazing doctors, amazing clinics, and pretty much anything that you need help with is available. Now, you do have to keep in mind that socialized medicine, so it might not run as smoothly, it might not be as quick as what you're familiar with and accustomed to, but you can absolutely get the care that you're looking for and that you need here in Israel. If you look at the healthcare system from kind of a macro overview, it's broken down into 4 Kupat Cholim, or 4 HMOs. They're all governed and regulated by the government, and they all provide very similar services. So the question is, how do you pick the right HMO, and how do you pick the right level? Because each Kupa has different levels. They have the basic level, a middle tier, a top tier. And so what a lot of people do is that they will look at the community or the city or the neighborhood that they're moving to and find the kuppah that has a lot of doctors that speak that language, whether it's English, French, German, or other languages. So that's the first thing that a lot of people will do to help pick the right HMO. The second thing is, if you do have medical conditions and if you do need to see a specialist, then you should find out what Kupat Cholim that specialist belongs to, and then join that. It's very similar to in the US, where you have in-network and out-of-network. The same concept here. You can go out-of-network, but then you have to pay out of pocket. And so those are the two main factors. One is finding the kuppah that has the most or has a lot of doctors that speak your language. And the other one is, if you do need specialists, then you want to find the kuppah cholim that they belong to. There are a number of tips and advice that I want to share with you, just for you to keep in mind, that I think will help you as you plan your Aliyah. The first thing is, you want to plan well in advance if you have medical conditions. And what I encourage and recommend to a lot of people is, if you do need to see a specialist, talk to your doctors, your current specialists, and see if they can recommend somebody. A lot of doctors these days are well connected. They have connections to doctors in Israel, and they can say, Dr. So-and-so is somebody that you should talk to and potentially use. And so that really helps with the search, and that's something that you can do before you get to Israel. Another thing is, you want to look at the centers, the medical centers, and where they're located. As Ziva pointed out, there are a lot of wonderful communities throughout the country, but not all of them are close to a medical center. And if this is something that's important to you and something that you need, you want to look at the communities where they either have a hospital or a large clinic nearby, or within a short driving distance, so that if you do need to go, they're accessible. The other thing that you want to keep in mind is the medication. So a lot of people are on different medications, and while you might not find that exact medication here in Israel, most likely you'll find the equivalent, the Israeli brand of it. So you want to check beforehand. It's called a klita, like a sal trufot. It's the basket of medication, and so you can check beforehand to see which kuppah offers the medication that you need, and that will also help you pick the right kuppah. When it comes to medication, even over the counter, what I recommend people do is bring a 6-month supply of medications. So if, God forbid, you're sick, you've made Aliyah, and you need some specific medication, it might even be over the counter, like, Excedrin or ibuprofen or something that you're used to. Instead of running around and trying to figure out what you should get, you have it in your cabinet, and it's easy for you to use, and it just makes it a little less stressful at the beginning in those first few months. Another thing that you should keep in mind, as I mentioned before, is because it is social medicine, that means that things just take longer to make appointments. It might take you a few weeks or a few months to get an MRI or an X-ray, to see a specialist. And so you should plan ahead of time. And if you know that in 6 months from now you need to see a specialist, don't wait until that time to try and make the appointment. Plan in advance and make the appointment early on, so that you can see the doctors when you need to. Also keep in mind that there are ways of paying out of pocket to kind of expedite that. So even if it's not private healthcare, you can pay, usually it's a few hundred shekel, to be able to see a doctor, to see a specialist sooner than later. So that's something that will help you in your planning. Another tip that I'll share with you is that it's very helpful to know the secretary of the office. Very, very often the secretary kind of runs the show there. And if you get to know them, and if they understand your story and situation, a lot of times you can pick up the phone, speak to the secretary and say, look, this is an urgent situation. Can you help me? And more often than not, they will try and help you. They'll try and get you the care that you need. And so just keeping that in mind will help you. And the last tip that I want to share with you is stay proactive. Stay on top of your health. If you're coming with, and this is more to the families, if you're coming with children, in Israel, they don't have well visits once a year. It's really up to the parents to keep an eye on their kids and to make sure that they go to see the doctor when it's necessary. The same thing applies to people who are older. If you feel that you need to see a doctor, then take matters in your own hand. Go ahead and be proactive, be assertive. If you don't get the information or the help that you need, don't accept no. Really fight for yourself and be an advocate. And I think that you'll find, by and large, there's a wonderful Israeli system here that you can get all the care that you need and all the medication, and really make sure that you're taking care of your health in the right way.
Thank you very much, Rafi. We've thrown a lot of information at you. And there's an organization that everyone is aware of, Nefesh B'Nefesh, that has a tremendous amount of information that will be very helpful to you. And so I'd like to introduce Marc Rosenberg from Nefesh B'Nefesh to talk about the things that they do and start beginning answer. We got a lot of questions over the past couple of days. He's not going to be able to answer all of them, but he will be able to kind of give you an idea of where to find some of these answers to these questions. So Marc, it's all yours.
Thank you very much. It's great to be a part of such an impactful hour plus. So I'm going to try and be as sharp as I can to add on to the support that we can offer people exploring Aliyah. We are lending off our experience of the community of over 84,000 North Americans who made Aliyah the past 22 years. And it's really, these are my 3 tips that I wanted to share before getting into some question and answer, is that there is a lot of planning, which we've spent the past hour plus talking about, but there's a technical process that people have to do in getting the application together. We advise people starting an application if they're thinking of making Aliyah in 9 to 12 months before they want to come. But it's important to say that there's no commitment to starting the application. It's often something difficult for people to find their marriage certificates or their birth certificates and get them certified on an international level called an apostille. So encourage someone who's thinking about exploring about Aliyah to be familiar with the process and to start it. It's always easy to push off the technical plans. And sometimes people want to rush forward with it, but they still have to do the necessary items and have the process of getting the interview and getting approved. So it's much better to get ahead and apply regarding the technical process. My second point is important because there are a tremendous amount of resources that were touched on, and I don't want to nitpick about it, because I think it's important to say that the whole concept was network and speak to people and use the people, the panelists that were here, people that you know in your network and family, speak to people about it, to ask the questions, be very dugri, as we say in Hebrew, be very upfront, have that chutzpah of Israelis to ask, how much do you pay for rent? What do you like about living in this town, or what don't you like? What do you like about the schools? Speak to people. Don't just rely upon a conversation at Kiddush or your Shabbat table about, I heard that Modi'in is expensive, I heard that so-and-so is inexpensive. You want to talk to people. And it's important that I emphasize this point, is you need to verify your questions with official sources. And we see this at Nefesh B'Nefesh a lot, that people will post something in a WhatsApp group or in a Facebook group, and they'll have a question, and someone will jump in on answers like, when I made Aliyah, you did this way, X, Y, and Z. And if they made Aliyah 2 years ago, or 10 years ago, or 20 years, the details may have changed. And you have to understand that the experience for one person might not be the other person. City to city, it might be different. And we are constantly, Nefesh B'Nefesh, working to be up to date on it. I'm going to use a specific example because there might be people interested in the real estate opportunities in Israel. And they may have heard that they can actually buy an apartment before they come and then be able to make Aliyah within a year to get the tax discount on it. You need to speak to a real estate attorney whenever you're purchasing real estate, especially if you're going to do so in Israel. But you have to understand that there is some tax implications on this. The government gives a purchase tax discount, and they are paying closer attention to this. Significantly in 2025, we are in close discussions with the tax authorities about this, and actually spoke to someone at one of our events just a few weeks ago to make sure it's clarified, because things are being said in different offices, and therefore people might be doing huge investments and relying upon what old advice of people, and it might not applicable in the future. So another example of this is traveling back and forth. When you make Aliyah, there are no travel restrictions. You can make Aliyah and leave the next day if you have to fly to a wedding, but you have to be conscious of residency. When you're approved for Aliyah, you will be accepted into the Israeli healthcare system. You'll be a citizen. After a few months, you'll be 3 months, you'll be eligible to vote in elections we have often. You'll get a passport or travel document, but you have to maintain a residency in Israel. And the government has become extremely meticulous about how many days you're spending in the country. And it used to be, it was 183 days, cumulative, but you have to understand that what was once a policy it might not be the policy today. So ask your questions. Please speak to the professionals so they can give you an authoritative answer. It's important to network because you get opinions, and obviously, which is the best bank is very subjective. But when it comes to big financial decisions or important decisions about choosing schools and the requirements and registration dates, you want to have a verified answer and not rely just on the kindness of a nice person that made Aliyah in a year that started with a 1. That's just point number 2. And the third point is I think wrapping up so many comments that were made today is that I think that the decision to make Aliyah is not ideological. I have been in Rabbi Schwartz's shul for many Shabbatot. My sister and brother-in-law lived on the Upper West Side for a long time. And I don't think that they have a different ideology when it comes to Eretz Israel than I do. And I think that what separates people who are living in Israel and those who are yet to arrive in Israel is that they are practically not ready to do it. And I would hopefully encourage you to take this initiative to explore this conversation with your rabbanim, with your people in your kihlah, and obviously with a lot of the professionals that are here, to see that you might be able to draw up a plan, whether it's this year, a few years, when your kids graduate from high school, when you retire from work. But understand that the decision is often very practical. And when the rubber hits the road and you run your finances and you look at your financial planning, or if you look at the cost of college education, or for your children, encourage them to study in Israel, or what the job market might be and the satisfaction that people might have from it, it's important to lean into asking those detailed questions of might be good for your future. Because in a survey just I had at the office today, a lot of people had no plans to live in Israel. You'd ask them, I grew up in a traditional family about Israel and stuff like that. But the opportunity for learning here or working here or visiting here opened up a practical opportunity for them to make things happen for Israel. And it's a historic opportunity. And I think that speaking for a lot of people, it's an opportunity that we don't regret. And I just want to conclude my Nefesh B'Nefesh segment I was delayed in coming, but listened to the first hour as I took the train from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. And it's just an amazing experience to be able to look out the window as you're traveling on this train in less than an hour to get back from the center of Tel Aviv to here in Jerusalem, and to see that you're just experiencing history with Am Yisrael and Eretz Yisrael. And if it is an opportunity you want to explore and want to enjoy, then just it costs nothing to take advantage of these tremendous resources people are sharing their valuable time to make sure that you can have that personal answer. So I would encourage you to please do that, to contact, put my contact in there, Nefesh B'Nefesh information there as well. That is my summary of points that came today. I think, Rabbi Bloom, you would like me to address some of the questions that came in, is that correct?
Yes. So we got a whole bunch of questions, and we know that time is limited. So I think I just sent you kind of latest.
Sure. I'm going to start with a few questions, and I'm going to do a lightning round to be as brief as I can, and other people are welcome to chime in. But I want to understand that there's also a lot of subjectivity here, and I want to emphasize that. I want to first drop off of some of the amazing communities that Ziva Glantz mentioned here. She mentioned that affordability, expensive is a subjective term. And you have to understand that living on the Upper West Side, a lot of people outside say, it's expensive to live there, but you're living there. So you have to understand that all of the communities you'll hear about here, some people say Yerushalayim is expensive. You need to lean into the numbers. You need to understand what your budget is. We have a great budget calculator on our website that you can put in the figures of the size of your family, the part of your country. And this will give you a sense of what we think you're going to spend here in Israel. And then understand when people give you real estate prices, either renting or buying, to figure whether it fits into your budget. One of the questions that came is the pros and cons of buying on paper. Well, I'll say this quickly, is that the pros of buying on paper is often that it's less expensive, and that you can make adjustments into the apartment to meet your needs and desires, which is really wonderful, and you're getting in early. You can also pay over time, so sometimes there's a financial gain on that. The cons about buying on paper is that sometimes you have to make sure that the project is going to end on time, although there's a legal clause to protect you from the final payment on it. But there have been historically issues of sometimes delays, and you need to investigate that. And also one of the cons that people don't always talk about is that you don't know who the neighbors are going to be. When you move into a known neighborhood or known building, you can see the neighbors. It has a vibe, it has an atmosphere to it. So you do take a gamble on a certain building because you don't know what the neighbors or the especially a new neighborhood, what's going to be like. Carmel Gat was mentioned, and I actually visited Carmel Gat 7 years ago, and it was a gamble for a lot of people who got in very early for very inexpensive, and it's turning out very well for a certain population of people. But I met one or two people who said it was great, but it's not for us, and we're going to flip it and sell it. The investment has paid off. So you have to also think about the investment factors versus just your final destination in Israel. A question came here about speaking Hebrew. How hard it will be to make Aliyah if you don't speak Hebrew? Well, it'll definitely be easier the more Hebrew that you speak. There are tremendous apps that help on these devices, these phones, that allow you to find out when the bus is coming. Sometimes you can type something in Google Translate and it will make the order for you. So it's definitely easier than ever to be in Israel without Hebrew, but your experience will be better. The government offers you a 5-month ulpan when you arrive. I would encourage anyone thinking of living here of doing Hebrew lessons beforehand, listening to talk radio, watching TV shows with subtitles. Anything that you're going to absorb yourself in Hebrew is going to increase your comfort in the language and your familiarity with what's going on. I think it's incumbent upon me to say this, that especially in the past year and a half, I felt how emotional a language Hebrew is. There's certain texts that we speak, that we've always said in shul, that are said on the radio, that just jump out and they pull your heart, especially talking about the war and the situation as we pray for the speedy return of the hostages and the safety and success of our soldiers. So you won't have to have it, but it's a mentality. I'm a public school kid. I went to Hebrew school where I learned to be illiterate. It's possible. If I could do it, anyone could do it. You just have a mentality that you're going to be able to lean into your Hebrew and be open to it as well. Another question came in is about income tax. There's a 10-year tax holiday on passive income earned abroad. So it means when you make Aliyah, you don't have to report any passive income, any investments that you have. Social Security is never taxed, but you have to be aware that come the 11th year, you have to disclose what you have. There's a tax treaty between Uncle Sam and I call him Uncle Moshe. So you're not going to be double taxed, but especially if you have passive income or you're retired, you want to be aware of that is. If you have active income, the same tax treaty applies. So it's important you speak to an accountant about that impact on it. And I want to share a tip as well. The government is announcing a change in this, that when you make Aliyah, you might have to disclose what your income is, even though it's not going to be taxable for 10 years from now. So it's a new wrinkle that's coming into the system. So it's important to follow that. And the practical impact, though, is that if you had your apartment on 92nd Street, and you made Aliyah and sold it 9 years later, then you would obviously pay income tax to the United States, but Israel wouldn't know about it. So there's a difference now that you're disclosing that you have real estate and that you might have that. So it's important to understand and speak to a financial professional. Nefesh B'Nefesh does not give financial help. We push you on to experts because that is something that is you really need to speak to someone who will take responsibility and guide you on that. A few other questions here. One is rentals in Israel while renting one's home in America. It really had to see about speaking to an accountant about that, about rental income is a great opportunity. I don't encourage always people to sell their home right away. It's an investment question and understand the tax income of what that will give you because it's a long-term planning. Another question came through here just recently, I see, is about healthcare. You definitely, I want to strengthen what Rafi Shulman said about doing the investigative work beforehand. There are 4 HMOs in Israel. You choose one similar to a bank, one that's in your city. If you're in a big city, all 4 are there. If you're in a smaller town, there might be 1 or 2. Someone you can communicate with. And then if you have a specialty or service, if you have a bad knee, then you want to know who's the best knee doctor on your plan. Then you can have easier access to that doctor. She might help you better. But you want to investigate the plan that you could speak to, and that increasingly these plans are having English-speaking representatives to understand the care that you are going to get. It's really, really amazing. I want to strengthen that point. It's a great, great system. It's unfamiliar to most North Americans. So it's important to get that experience, not just the urgent care experience that some of you may have had at a visit at Terem, but the real, generally blood checkup and seeing your doctors and getting the confidence that you're looking for there. A question came here about restrictions on people buying a home over the age of 60. There is a general issue that people have about buying home over a certain age is that when you take a mortgage out in Israel, they want to see your paychecks for the past 3 months. They want to understand that you have a steady income that you're going to be able to take a mortgage for 30 years. So if you're over the age of 60, they want to have confidence of that you have that type of income. So I guess another tip I'll throw out there, I always tell people, is that no is just the start of negotiations in Israel. So you walk in the bank, they're going to reject you for the mortgage. So you should expect that. Then you have to open up a conversation and be prepared to disclose, okay, I have this amount of money I'm willing to bring in. Israelis often put down 40% when they purchase. You might not get a 30-year mortgage. So what would you be able to take out for a mortgage for 15 years? A mortgage is a fancy term for a loan. So you might be rejected for a mortgage. What type of loan terms could you get from the bank? And therefore, it's really coming into understanding and speaking to a bank. And I want to emphasize the point that was said earlier. It's finding someone you can communicate with, have the confidence. It's a great place to ask around who's a good mortgage broker, who's a good bank to speak to, and they will guide you. In general, things are negotiable, but you have to understand that if you are 68, they're not going to give you a 30-year mortgage. Even though Mashiach may come, they are protecting their practical investments as a bank. And I see maybe there's one or two questions that I will address and I'll stop. Mental health services and Social Security benefits. Social Security, as I mentioned, is never taxed. You can actually have it directly deposited into your Israeli account from the United States if you want to do it. There are actually very reasonable mental health services. I want to push you to be familiar with how your Kupat Cholim, your HMO, handles it. As was mentioned by Rafi Shulman, is that you have to understand the package that you get, the basic plan, whether you get silver coverage. And while some people do choose to seek private consultations because they would like to find an English speaker or someone that's more empathetic, but you always have the option to go private, maybe even get money back returned because you saw someone private. But it is something that the system has become even more and more sensitive to, especially we talk about the resilience during the work. The last question I'll take here, and then I feel as if I'm dominating too much of the questions here in this lightning round of questions, is about key neighborhoods Israeli are good for living in. I think all of them are great for living in. I think that Ziva mentioned a tremendous amount of great neighborhoods from the north and south. But you have to understand that even in those places, they have micro neighborhoods in them. So just like people don't like, oh, I'm going to move to the Upper West Side. I know there's a difference between the 70s and the 90s. I even was up in 110 sometimes. You want to understand the niches about those people. Speak to people. Understand what it's like. Today's Sunday. I lost my days. What Sunday? What would you do if you're here after work, after school for your kids? Lean into the details of this. Sometimes there's a community list or a WhatsApp group. You can lurk. You can just watch what the community is like. But speaking to people will give you a sense of what it's like. You would do the same thing if you were thinking of leaving Manhattan. You would go spend a Shabbat over in New Jersey or up in Westchester or go out to Memphis. You would do the same, speak to people, listen to people, the same type of research that you want to do. And I think the great message that I want to wrap up with is not just you would do it on your own. There's all of these organizations that are happy to help you, that have a desire to help you, to give you that thrust, that energy that Hillel Fuld and Rabbi Pruzansky started with here, that ideology that, wow, step through that, ask those questions, and it'll be something that'll be, I bless you, that it should be really positive, and that you should not just be able to make Aliyah, but can constantly be Ba'aliyah.
Thank you very much, Mark. So let me just kind of wrap up. First of all, let me thank all the speakers. And I especially want to thank Chad Hopkowitz, who actually helped organize this across all the shuls in the Upper West Side. And a special thanks again to Rabbi Schwartz, who kind of organized all the rabbis in the Upper West Side. I encourage you to reach out to any of the speakers that you heard to today. If you have any very specific questions, we are more than glad to be the funnel from you to those speakers. We will be sending out a recording of this particular webinar. Please do not hesitate to share it with any of your friends. Encourage your friends to join some of the groups that have been set up that are creating a Aliyah network in your particular neighborhood, so you can start talking about Aliyah, getting more resources made available to you to answer your questions. So I hope that you found this hour and 3/4 very useful. I wish you all wonderful hatzlacha in your planning of Aliyah. And remember, this is a process. This doesn't mean you have to go out and buy your tickets on El Al or wherever to come to Eretz Israel tomorrow. This is a process you need to plan. To be successful, you need to make sure that you plan in all these areas that we talked about. We can provide support together with Nefesh B'Nefesh, together with other organizations who are here to help you. We've had medical organizations that provide support to people who are looking at Aliyah. We've had financial planners. Nefesh B'Nefesh has resources that are tremendous and are available to you. Make use of those resources so you can make your best decision. And again, if you have any questions, or if you'd like any additional help, please do not hesitate to reach out to myself, and I will direct you to the appropriate resources. Again, thank you very much, and thank you for your time and hatzlacha in your planning of making Aliyah. And I look forward to seeing all of you.